Meet the Audi Q5's new sporty sibling, a stylish, more aggressive solution Audi calls its Sportback range. And look, spoiler alert, it's better looking than the regular Q5. There's just no question about it. But does this new raked roofline impact your comfort levels in the cabin? Do its sporty intentions impact the way it is to drive every day? And how much do they want you to pay for it? All these questions and more answered, so stay with me. And we are going to be covering everything here, from pricing and features to design, practicality, safety, what's under the bonnet, efficiency, ownership, what it's like to drive, and of course, my final verdict. But I appreciate time is precious, so if you're in a hurry, feel free to skip ahead with the time codes or the chapter markings so you can jump to the bit which interests you the most. All right, got it? Let's get started. But first, if you're watching us on YouTube, please do hit subscribe so you never miss a video, and don't forget to check out carsguide.com.au to get your full auto fix. Yes, eye of the beholder and all that, but for mine, the Q5 Sportback is a handsome beast, and especially in SQ5, guys, where the black honeycomb grille, the massive alloys, and this generally menacing air combine to create a really tough-looking premium SUV. But even here in lesser 45 TFSI, guys, I reckon it looks to business, although perhaps a little bit more premium than performance-focused. Oh, and I really like this color. They call it ultra blue, and I reckon it pops. But what you really want to know is what's the difference between the Q5 and the Q5 Sportback? Come with me and I'll show you. Now, as the name suggests, the Sportback version gives you, well, a sportier back. And it all starts here at the B pillar with this new raked roofline that really slopes down at the end now. You also get this sizable rear spoiler that covers a fair chunk of the windscreen as well. Now, even these rear lights have been shifted by about 3 centimeters and this lip built in. The whole idea being we want to accentuate this sporty feeling rear end of the car. But they're not the only changes. In Sportback models, the single frame grille up front is different, and the grille is also positioned lower and seems to jut out from the bonnet a little more for a lower, more aggressive look. The lights are also positioned a little higher, and those massive air intakes on either side are different too. People accuse Audi interiors of feeling a bit boring and predictable, but to be honest, I don't really buy that argument. As long as the cabin feels well put together and premium, then you'll get no complaints from me. Now, that being said, there are some materials in here which feel a bit questionable and probably have no place in a car in this price bracket, but there are a lot of things I really like. This big 10.1-inch screen is clear, simple to use, and really effective. I still love Audi's customizable virtual cockpit. I really like this sliding wireless charger that not only charges your mobile phone, but slides backwards to reveal the 2 cup holders. And the whole cabin feels big and airy and spacious, especially up front. It's a 3 model range here, which kicks off with the entry-level Q5 Sportback 40 TDI Quattro, which gets 20-inch alloys, a standard S-Line sporty exterior styling treatment, LED headlights and tail lights, and an electric tailgate with gesture control. Inside, there's leather trim, electric sports seats, 3-zone climate, paddle shifters for the steering wheel, and ambient interior lighting. You also get the virtual cockpit, the 10.1-inch central screen with all the Auto Connect Plus services like live traffic, weather and restaurant tips, as well as Android Auto and wireless Apple CarPlay. The range then steps up to the Q5 Sportback 45 TFSI, which gives you a new 20-inch alloy wheel design, a panoramic sunroof, and matrix LED headlights. This time, the S-Line treatment extends to the interior, along with Napa leather trim, heated front seats, and a sliding or reclining rear bench. You also get a better sound system too, with 10 speakers including a sub. Finally, the SQ5 delivers 21-inch alloys, adaptive dampers and red brake calipers, while inside you get electric steering adjustments, a head-up display, colour ambient lighting, and a banging Bang & Olufsen stereo with 19 speakers. Now, I could be doing this from the front seat, but the reality is life hasn't really changed up there. If you know the Q5, then you know the Q5 Sportback, at least in the front seats. Now back here though, things are different. They're not as different as you might think. This new roofline is actually only 16 millimeters lower in the cabin. I'm 175 centimeters, and as you can see, I've got enough headroom, I've got plenty of knee room, and while this central tunnel arrangement does mean putting 3 adults back here might be a squeeze, you could definitely put 2 in genuine comfort. So better to ride with 2 then. That way, you can deploy the center armrest, uncover the hidden cup holders, you can plug in 2 devices to the twin USB ports, and you even have your own aircon controls and temperature controls. Now up front, there's a whole array of hidey holes and cubby holes and storage spaces. There's the full complement of bottle holders in each of the door, and there's full complement of cup holders as well. So to the boot. Now again, you're not paying much in the way of a practicality penalty for this new sporty styling. Audi reckons there's 500 litres of storage space here, which is only marginally less than you'd find in the regular Q5, and that number grows to 1,470 litres with those rear seats folded flat. And speaking of the rear seats, they're actually on rails in this trim level and above, which means you can prioritise boot space or passenger space depending on what you need. The Audi Q5 Sportback carries a 5-star ANCAP safety rating. That's really the minimum cost of entry these days. So what else do you get? Advanced driver assist systems on offer here include autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian detection, active lane keep assist with lane change warning, driver attention assist, blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, park assist, a great surround view camera, parking sensors, exit warning, tyre pressure monitoring, and more radars than you can poke a stick at. There are 3 engines total here, kicking off with the 2-litre TDI in the Q5 Sportback 40. It produces 150 kilowatts and 400 Newton meters, enough for a sprint to 100 kilometers in 7.6 seconds. Now the 2-litre petrol in the 45 TFSI bumps up those numbers to 183 kilowatts and 370 Newton meters, as well as lowering your sprint to 100 kilometers an hour to just 6.3 seconds. Now both vehicles also feature a 12-volt mild hybrid system to smooth out acceleration and lower fuel use, as well as Quattro Ultra, which disconnects the rear drive shaft, basically turning it into a front-wheel drive vehicle when it can to save fuel. The SQ5 gets a seriously lusty 3-litre TDI V6, which delivers 251 kilowatts and 700 Newton meters and a sprint of 5.1 seconds. It also gets a 48-volt mild hybrid system. All Q5 Sportback models are fitted with a 70-litre fuel tank, which should provide a driving range in excess of 1,000 kilometres, but be prepared for pain at the pump. I've seen 95 RON fuel at almost $1.90 a litre, which means it should take about $130 to fill this thing up from empty to full. Just something to be aware of. Audi says the Q5 Sportback 40 TDI will sip 5.4 litres per 100 kilometres on the combined cycle, while emitting 142 grams a kilometre of CO2. The 45 TFSI needs 8 litres per 100 kilometres on the combined cycle and will emit 183 grams per kilometre of CO2. The SQ5 then sits somewhere in the middle with 7.1 litres per 100 kilometres and 186 grams per kilometre of CO2. All Audis are covered by a 3-year unlimited kilometre warranty, which really isn't great in a world of 5, 7 and even 10-year warranties. The brand will let you prepay your services, which are required annually for the first 5 years, with the regular Q5 Sportback range billed at $3,140 and the SQ5 billed at $3,170. Now we spent the first half of this adventure behind the wheel of the SQ5 Sportback, and I can tell you that is a very different beast to this. For one, it's got that really lusty, really energetic engine, which isn't like lightning quick by any stretch, but it just feels really willing and like it always wants to give you a little bit more. And in its most dynamic settings, it always feels ready for action too. Should you so much as just dab the accelerator, it drops down a gear, the revs increase, and it kind of tenses like it's ready for its next command. It's a really fun thing to drive, and it sounds really fun too. The only kind of downside to it, as far as I could tell, was that it is an undeniably firmer ride. Now that's not to say it's necessarily uncomfortable, but we were driving over the Harbour Bridge, for example, and all the bridge expanders, you could definitely feel them in the cabin as you were driving. So if you're one of those people who likes to be removed from the drive experience, that might not be the one for you. If, however, you're one of those people who likes to feel a bit more connected to the drive experience, then you'll find plenty to love about the SQ5. It also does a really good job of managing to feel somehow smaller than it is. From behind the wheel, it really does feel like you're driving something lighter and a little bit more agile than what is, in reality, quite a large SUV. Now this one, on the other hand, despite being the sportier version of the regular Q5 Sportback range, is a little bit more sedate than the SQ5, but that might not necessarily be such a bad thing. In its automatic drive settings, which we're going to now, it really doesn't serve up much in the way of surprises. The steering is really nice and light, but it also does inspire some sense of confidence. The cabin noise is really quiet. It locks out most of the outside world. And if you're gentle with the throttle, even the sound of the engine doesn't really permeate the cabin. And in its auto settings, there's not even much in the way of exhaust to speak of. It's a nice, easy, peaceful SUV to pilot. But when you dial up the settings, It doesn't so much totally shift the character of the car, but rather just tighten everything up a little bit. The accelerator becomes just a little bit more responsive, the steering feels just a tiny bit heavier, and the whole vehicle just feels a little bit more switched on. Now, this isn't designed to be an out-and-out sports car, but Audi does make a big deal about what it calls hot hatch style acceleration. And sure enough, plant your foot, there's a moment's hesitation as it tries to figure out what the best gear is before it finally drops down as low as it can and does unlock a really healthy burst of power. It's definitely not slow, this vehicle, and can be driven fast if you want to. But for mine, it kind of more lulls you into a sense of comfort and peace. It really does feel at its absolute best, just slowly and comfortably wafting around town, knowing though that you can switch it on when you want to. Now, one of the things I do really like about it though is that it never feels like you're driving a big car. Now sure, this isn't the biggest SUV in the Audi stable, but even so, it feels smaller and more nimble than its dimensions might suggest. How would I sum it up? Easy. We know the Audi Q5 is a super solid offering in the premium SUV space, so I'm going to do this one a little differently. Q5 versus Q5 Sportback. And I want you to forget about money for a moment, because if you can afford it, why wouldn't you? This is a sleeker, more stylish, sportier answer to the Q5, and as far as I can tell, the practicality sacrifices you have to make are fairly minimal. So why not?